Have you ever seen someone who looks incredibly successful on the outside, but completely crumbles the moment real pressure hits? It turns out, looking good is actually the easiest way to fail when things get hot. In this video, I'm going to show you why the most overlooked, seemingly average people are actually the ones holding all the power, and the one hidden trait they possess that you can use to win any crisis. We're analyzing the core psychological lessons from the classic tale of the two vessels to help you build genuine, high-value utility. Welcome back. Let's get started. The story: Be Useful, Not Beautiful. Chapter 1. The Mirror of the Sun. At the dusty crossroads where the bustling trade winds met a quiet, forgotten village, two vessels sat on a wooden bench. They were neighbors, sharing the same small patch of shade beneath an old banyan tree, yet they belonged to entirely different worlds. The first was a copper pot, a masterpiece of the blacksmith's forge. It was polished to such a high mirror finish that it seemed to trap the sunlight within its body. When the sun rose, the copper pot blazed like pure gold, casting dazzling beams of light across the dirt road. The second was a clay pot, shaped by the calloused hands of a local potter. It was dark, rough-textured, and entirely plain. It bore no patterns, no polish, and no grandeur. It simply smelled faintly of rain and ancient earth. Every morning, as the dew melted away, the copper pot would peer into a nearby puddle to admire its own glittering reflection. "Look at the way the light dances across my shoulders," the copper pot would boast, its voice ringing out with a sharp, metallic chime. "I am a treasure fit for a palace. People will look at me and see royalty. But you? You are nothing but mud and ash. Dull, dark, and ugly. You do not even deserve to sit on the same bench as me." The clay pot remained perfectly still. It did not tremble with anger, nor did it hide in shame. It simply smiled, its voice low and grounding, like the rustle of dry leaves. "Everyone has their own purpose in this world, my friend," the clay pot replied softly. "Pride is a heavy burden to carry, and it does not last forever." The copper pot threw its head back and laughed, a mocking, echoing sound. "Purpose? Don't fool yourself. In a world driven by desire, appearance is everything. Beauty is the only purpose that matters." Chapter 2. The Whisper of the Travelers. Weeks bled into months. The road was never empty. A steady stream of merchants, farmers, and weary travelers marched past the banyan tree. Almost every passerby would stop and gasp at the brilliant shine of the copper pot. They would point at it, admire their own reflections in its metal skin, and marvel at its craftsmanship. Yet, strangely, when their long journeys left them breathless and weary, they would bypass the shiny vessel entirely. Instead, they would tilt the humble clay pot, pouring its contents into their hands to drink. This deeply frustrated the copper pot. Day after day, it received all the praise, yet the clay pot received all the touch. One quiet afternoon, unable to contain its anger, the copper pot snapped. "Why do they keep choosing you? Are they blind? Can they not see the dust on your skin and the glory of my frame?" The clay pot looked out at the shimmering heat waves on the horizon and replied gently, "They do not come to the crossroads to look at a mirror. They come to quench a fire inside them. They do not seek beauty, they seek life." The copper pot scoffed, turning its face away, refusing to let go of its arrogance. Chapter 3. The Furnace of Summer. Then, the great summer arrived. It was a season of merciless, blinding heat. The clouds vanished from the sky, leaving a sun that burned like an open furnace. The green fields turned to yellow dust, the ground cracked open like broken glass, and the very air felt like breathing fire. In this cruel heat, the copper pot's greatest pride became its terrible undoing. Because it was made of metal, it absorbed the sun's rays greedily. Hour by hour, it grew hotter and hotter. Soon, its beautifully polished skin was scalding to the touch. The water trapped inside its belly began to warm, then simmer, until it became a hot, stagnant vapor, completely undrinkable. Meanwhile, the The clay pot sat quietly in the shade. Its porous walls breathed, allowing tiny microscopic beads of moisture to evaporate from its surface, naturally cooling the water hidden deep within its core. Through the haze of the heat, a lone traveler appeared on the road. He was a poor woodcutter, his clothes torn, his lips cracked and bleeding from dehydration. He staggered toward the wooden bench, his eyes wide with desperation. He saw the magnificent copper pot first, gleaming like a mirage. "Ah, a vessel fit for a king," he gasped, throwing himself forward. Surely, the water inside must be sweet and pure. With trembling hands, he reached out and grabbed the copper handle. "Ah!" the traveler screamed, instantly pulling his hands away. The blistering metal had scorched his palms. "It's a trap. It is filled with fire." Panting, cradling his burned hands, the traveler looked down in despair. Then, his eyes fell upon the dark, unpretentious clay pot. Desperate, he carefully touched its rim. It was wonderfully, shockingly cool. He lifted the clay pot to his cracked lips and tipped it forward. A stream of water, as cold and refreshing as a mountain spring, rushed down his throat. The traveler closed his eyes, a look of profound relief washing over his face. "Blessed be this earth," he whispered, resting his forehead against the cool clay. "This is the water of life." Chapter 4: The Awakening. Before long, a crowd of travelers gathered under the banyan tree, all escaping the brutal sun. Not a single person looked at the shining copper pot. In fact, they pushed it aside to make room. They gathered in a circle around the clay pot, passing it from hand to hand, drinking deeply, and sighing with pure satisfaction. The clay pot stood silently, emptying itself completely to satisfy the needs of strangers, asking for nothing in return. The copper pot watched this scene unfold in absolute silence. For the first time since the blacksmith had hammered it into shape, it felt a sensation it had never known. It was not pride. It was not anger. It was a deep, aching shame. It looked down at its own brilliant, golden surface, now warped by the heat waves, and whispered to itself, "What is the use of my beauty? What is the worth of my golden shine, if I cannot comfort a single suffering soul?" The crowd eventually moved on, leaving the two vessels alone once more in the fading evening light. The copper pot turned toward its neighbor. The arrogance was entirely gone from its voice, replaced by a soft, trembling humility. "I was blind," the copper pot whispered. "I thought because I was beautiful, I was superior. But today I see the truth. You are cracked, you are plain, and you are made of common mud, yet you are far more valuable than I could ever hope to be." The clay pot smiled, the evening breeze humming gently across its rim. "Value is never born from how we look, my friend," the clay pot said, its voice filled with timeless wisdom. "True value is born from how we serve. In this journey of life, outer beauty may capture the eyes for a moment, but it is inner goodness that rescues the heart. Pride and appearance will always fade like the setting sun, but the grace of helping others leaves a mark that lasts forever." The moral: never measure your worth, or the worth of those around you, by the armor you wear or the shine of your exterior. The world is full of beautiful things that offer no comfort. What truly matters is the depth of your character and what you give to those in need. In the end, it is not your shine, but your kindness that defines your legacy. Motivation life lesson from this story. This story is a powerful reminder that our worth isn't found in our packaging, but in our product. Here are the key motivational life lessons broken down into simple English. 1. Utility over vanity. In the real world, being useful is better than being decorative. The copper pot was beautiful to look at, but it failed at its only job, providing water. The lesson: focus on developing skills and character that actually help people. A flashy title or a fancy outfit doesn't matter if you can't provide value when things get tough. 2. Inner peace is stronger than outer pride. The clay pot didn't get angry when it was insulted. It stayed calm because it knew its own value. The lesson: When you know who you are and what you contribute, the insults of others won't bother you. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to shout like the copper pot. 3. The heat reveals your true character. Everything looks good when life is easy, springtime. But when the heat of life arrives, stress, crisis, or hard times, your true nature comes out. The lesson: hard times act as a filter. They expose people who are all talk, the hot copper, and highlight those who are reliable and cool under pressure, the clay. 4. Humility is an asset, not a weakness. The clay pot's humble material allowed it to keep the water cool. Its plainness was actually its greatest strength. The lesson: don't be ashamed of your humble beginnings or your simple lifestyle. Often, the very things you think are plain about yourself are the tools that allow you to serve others best. 5. Kindness is the only shine that lasts. At the end of the story, the copper pot realized that its beauty was useless because it couldn't offer comfort. The lesson: people may admire you for your success or looks, but they will love you for your kindness. No one remembers how the copper pot looked. They only remembered how the clay pot saved them. The big takeaway: don't spend all your time polishing your shine, your image. Spend your time filling your vessel, your heart, with something that can quench the world's thirst. Be the clay pot in a world full of copper. Learn English from this story. This story is a goldmine for learning vocabulary, idioms, and sentence structures. Because the story uses a lot of contrast, comparing the copper pot and the clay pot, it is a great way to learn descriptive English. Here is a breakdown of the language skills you can learn from this fable. 1. Idioms and metaphors, figurative language. Fables often use figurative language to give deep meaning to simple things. All talk, metaphor, the copper pot. What it means: someone who looks impressive or talks big, but does nothing useful when a real crisis happens. How to use it: the new manager is like the copper pot. He looks fancy, but he does no real work. Cool under pressure, metaphor, the clay pot. What it means: staying calm, helpful, and relaxed even when a situation is highly stressful or hot. How to use it: she stayed as cool as a clay pot during the difficult exam. To wrap oneself in pride. What it means: to become so arrogant that you refuse to see reality or listen to advice. How to use it: he wrapped himself in his pride and refused to apologize. 2. Speaking and pronunciation practice. If you are reading this story aloud, look at these phrases that use adverbs to show how a character is speaking. Practicing these will help you sound more natural and emotional. Boastfully, with a sharp chime, say the copper pot's lines with a high, proud, energetic voice. Softly, gently, say the clay pot's lines with a low, calm, slow voice. Whispered with trembling humility, say the copper pot's apology at the end with a quiet, shaky voice to show regret. Try it yourself. Pick 3 words from the word bank above and write your own simple sentences with them in the reply below. I will gladly check your grammar. Final thoughts. So stop wasting your energy trying to shine for people who only care about the surface. Fill your vessel with skills, with empathy, and with real value. That is how you become truly irreplaceable. If this story lit a fire under you today, smash that like button and subscribe right now. Drop a comment below with the word clay if you are ready to choose substance over shine. Let me know in the comments. Are you naturally a copper pot or a clay pot? I honestly used to be such a copper pot. If you liked hanging out today, give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story.